Windows operating system. An operating system OS is a software which acts as an interface between the end user and computer hardware. Every computer must have at least one OS to run another computer program. An application like Chrome, MS Word, games, etc. needs some environment in which it will run and perform its task. The OS helps you to communicate with the computer without knowing how to speak the computer's language. It is not possible for the user to use any computer or mobile device without having any operating system. Majority of home users use Windows based machines. Most of today's applications and games are designed to run solely on Microsoft systems. Functions of an operating system. An operating system software performs each of the function. Process management. Process management helps OS to create and delete processes. It also provides a mechanism for synchronization and communication among processes. Memory management. Memory management module performs the task of allotment and de-allotment of memory space to process in need of this resource. File management. It manages all the files related activities such as organization, storage, retrieval, naming, sharing, and protecting of files. Security. Security module protect the data and information of the computer system against malware, threat, and unauthorized access. Command interruption. Command interpretation. This module is interpreting commands given by the user and acting system resources to process that commands. Job accounting. Keep track of time and resources unused by various job and users. Communication management. Coordination and assignment of compiles, interpret, and another software resources of various users on computer system. Introduction to the Microsoft Windows. The oldest of all Microsoft's operating system is MS-DOS, Microsoft Disk Operating System. MS-DOS is a text-based operating system. Users have to type commands rather than use more friendly graphical user interface GUIs available today. Despite its very basic appearance, MS-DOS is very powerful machine operating system. There are many advanced applications and games available for MS-DOS. A version of MS-DOS underpins Windows. Many advanced admissions tasks in Windows can only be performed using MS-DOS. History of Windows. Windows versions through the years. 1985 Windows 1.0. The history of Microsoft Windows dates back to 1985 when Microsoft released Microsoft Windows version 1.01. Microsoft's aim was to provide a friendly user interface known as a GUI, graphical user interface, which allowed for easier navigation of the system. Windows 1.01 nearly rarely catch on. The release was a shake start for the tech gain. Users found the software unstable. The amazing thing about Windows 1.01 is that it fitted on the single floppy disk. However, the point and click interface made it easier for a new user to operate computer. Windows 1.0 offered many of the common components found in today's graphical user interface, such as scroll bars and OK buttons. 1987 Windows 2.0 and 2.11. Windows 2.0 was fast, more stable, and more GUI features. The GUI was very slightly improved, but still looked too similar to Windows 1.01. The system introduced the control panel and ran the first version of Excel and Word. Windows 2.0 supported extended memory and memory updated it for compatibility with Intel 80386 processors. It was during this time that Microsoft became the largest software vendor in the world, just as company computer were being more commonplace. The fact that Windows systems were user friendly and relatively affordable was a contribution factor to the growing PC market. 1990 Windows 3.0. Windows 3.0 supported 16 colors and included the casual games familiar to most Windows users, solitary, mainsware, and hearts games that required more processing power still ran directly on MS-DOS. Existing to DOS give games directly hardware as is made more system resources available. Microsoft made an enormous impression with Windows 3.0 and 3.1. Graphics and functionality were drastically improved. The Windows 3 family provided multimedia capability here as well as vastly improved graphics and application support, building the success of Windows 3.x. Microsoft released Microsoft Windows 3.11 for work group. This gave Windows to the ability to function on the network. 1993 Windows Net Technology (NT). Windows NT's release marked the completion of the side project to build a new advanced OS. NT was 32-bit and had a hardware abstraction layer. DOS was able through the commands prompt, but it did not run the Windows OS. Microsoft designed NT as a workstation voice for business rather than the home user. The system introduced the start button 1995 Windows 95. In 1995 Windows went through a major revamp and Microsoft Windows 1995 was released. This provided a gently improved multimedia and a much more polished user interface than now familiar desk and start menu appear. Internet and networking support was built in. Although Windows 95 was a home user operating system, it provided her to be very popular in schools and businesses. Windows 95 facility hardware installing with its plugin and play features. Microsoft also unveiled 32-bit color depth, enhanced multimedia compatibility, and TCP and IP network support. 1998 Windows 98. Microsoft Windows 98 was very similar to Windows 95. It offers a much tighter display and enhanced multimedia support. Microsoft improved speed and plug and play hardware support in Windows 98. The company also debuted USB support and a quick launch bar. In this release, DOS gaming began to warn as a Windows gaming technology improved. The popularity of the OS made it an attractive target for malware. Microsoft integrated web technology into Windows users and interface and built its own web browser into the desktop. 2000 Windows Millennium Edition (ME). Windows ME Millennium Edition was the last use of Windows 95 code base. Its most notable new feature was system restore. Many customers have found this release to be unstable. Some critics said ME stood for mistake edition. Microsoft released the professional desktop OS Windows 2000, initially called NT 5.0. In the same year, for the business market, a high improvement to the overall operating system allowed for easier configuration and installation. Microsoft based this OS on the more stable Windows NT code. Some home users installed Windows 2000 for its greater reliability. Microsoft update plug and play support, which spurred the home user to switch to this OS. One big advantage of Windows 2000 was the operating system setting could be modified easily without the need of restart the machine. Windows 2000 provided to be very stable operating system that offered the enhanced security and easy of administration. 2001 Windows XP. Microsoft delivered Windows XP as the first NT-based system with a version aimed squarely at the home user. Home user and critics rated XP highly. The system improved Windows appearance with colorful themes and provided a more stable platform. Microsoft virtually ended gaming in DOS with the release. DirectX enabled a feature in 3D gaming that opens GL had default with XP. offered the first Windows support of 64-bit computing, but it was not very well supported, lacking drivers and applications to run. 2006 Windows Vista. Microsoft typed Windows Vista after the company spent a lot of resources to develop a more polished appearance. Vista had interested visual effects, but the OS was slow to start and run. Vista flows, coupled with the fact that many old computers lacked the resource to run the system, led to many home and business users staying with XP. 2009 Windows 7. Microsoft built Windows 7 on the Vista kernel. Windows 7 picked up Vista's visual compatibility here, but feature more stable to many end users. The biggest chance between Vista and Windows 7 were a faster boot time, new user interface, and the addition of Internet Explorer 8. With a true 64-bit support and more DirectX features, Windows 7 provided to be a popular release for Windows users. 2012 Windows 8. Microsoft released Windows 8 with a number of enhanced and debuted its tile-based Metro user interface. Windows 8 took better advantages of multi-core processing, solid-state drives, SSD, touchscreens, and other alternate input method. 2015 Windows 10. Microsoft announced Windows 10 in September 2014, shrinking Windows 9 and launched on July 2015. Version 10 includes the Start menu, which was absent for Windows 8. A response design feature called Continuum adapts the interface depending on whether the user works with a touchscreen or a keyboard and mouse for input. A new feature like on-screen back button simplified touch input. Microsoft designed the OS to have a constantly interface across devices including PCs, laptops, and tab. Linux OS. Linux is an operating system or a kernel. It is distributed under an open source license. It functions list is quite like a Unix. Who created Linux? Linux is an operating system or a kernel which germinated as an idea in the mind of young and bright Linus Torvalds. When he was a computer science student, he used to work on the Unix OS proprietary software that it needed improvement. However, when his session were rejected with the designers of Unix, he thought of launching an OS which will be receptive to changes, modifications, and suggestions by its users. As time passed by, he collaborated with other programmers in place like MITs, and applications for Linux started to appear. So, around 1991, a working Linux operating system with some applications were officially launched, and this was start of one of the most loved and open source OS operating system available today. The early version of Linux were not so user friendly as they were used by computer programming, and Linus Torvalds never had it in mind to commercialize his product. This definition curbed the Linux popularity as other commercial oriented operating systems of Windows got famous. Nonetheless, the open source aspect of Linux operating system made it more robust. The main advantage of Linux was the programmers were able to use the Linux kernel to design their own custom operating system. With the time, a new range of user-friendly OS storms. Own custom operating system. With the time, a new range of user-friendly OS has stormed the computer world. Now Linux is one of the most popular and widely used kernel, and it is a backbone of the popular operating systems like Debian, Knopex, Ubuntu, and Fedora. Nevertheless, The list does not end here, and there are thousands of OS based on Linux which offer a variety of functions to the user. Linux kernel is normally used in combination of GNU project by Dr. Richard Stallman. All modern distributions of Linux are actually distribution of Linux GNU. Property of Linux, Linux Pro. A lot of advantages of Linux are a consequence of Linux origins deeply rooted in Unix. Except the first advantage, of course, Linux is free. If you want to spend absolutely nothing, you don't even have to pay the price of a CD. Linux can be downloaded in its entirely form the internet completely for free. Here no registration fee, no cost per user, free update and free available source code in case you want to change the behavior of your system. Most of all, Linux is free as in free speech. The Linux commonly used in GNU public license GPL. The license says that anybody who may want to do so has the right to change Linux and eventually to redistribute a changed version on the one condition that the code is still available after redistribution. Linux is portable to any hardware platform. A vendor who wants to sell a new type of computer and who does not know what kind of OS has a new machine will run. Say the CPU is your car and a washing machine can take a Linux kernel and made it work on his hardware. Linux is a secure and versatile. The security model used in Linux is based on a Unix idea of security which is known to be a robust and of poor quality, but Linux is not only fit for the user as a font against enemy attack from the internet, it will adapt equally to other situations utilizing the same high standards for security. Your development machine or control station will be secure as your firewall. Linux is scalable from a palm top with 2 MB of memory to a petabyte storage cluster with hundreds of nodes. Add or remove the appropriate package and Linux fits all. You don't need a supercomputer systems anymore because you can use Linux to do big things using the building blocks providing with the system. If you want to do little things such as making an operating system for an embedded processor or just recycling your old 486, Linux will do that as well. Sixth, the Linux OS and most Linux applications have very short debug time because Linux has been developed and tested by thousands of people. Both errors and peoples of fix them. They usually found rather quickly. It's something happens that there are only a couple of hours between discovering and fixing a debug. Linux Con. There are far too many different distributions, quite capture. Rotratens. As Romans already said, the more people, the more opinions. At first glance, and amount of Linux distribution can be frightened or ridiculous depending on your point of view. But it also means that everyone will find what he or she needs. You don't need to be an expert to find a suitable release. When asked, generally every Linux user will say that the best distribution in the specific version he is using. So, which one should you choose? Don't worry too much about that. All releases contain more or less the same set of basic package. On top of the basic, special third-party software is added, making, for example, Turbo Linux more suitable for small and medium enterprise, Red Hat for service, and SUSE for workstations. However, the difference are likely to be very superficial. The best strategy is to test a couple of distribution unsupported. Unfortunately, not everybody has the time for this. Luckily, there is plenty of advice on the subject of choosing your everybody has time for choosing Linux. A quick search on Google using a keyboard, choosing your distribution, bring up 10 of the links to good advice. The installation, how to also discussed choosing your distribution. Linux is not very user friendly and confusing for beginners. It must be said that Linux, at least the core system, is less user friendly to use the an MS Windows and certainly more difficult than a Mac OS. But in light of its popularity, consideration effort has made to made Linux even easier to use, especially for new users. Is an open source product truth worth? How can something that is free also be reliable? Linux users have the choice of whether to use Linux or not, which gives them a enormous advantage compared to user of proprietary software who does not have the kind of freedom. After long period of testing, most Linux users come to the conclusion that Linux is not only as good but in many cases better and faster than the traditional solutions. If Linux was not truthworthy, it would have been long gone, never knowing the popularity it has now. With millions of users now, user can influence their systems and share their remarks with the community, so the system gets better and better every day.